Hello, everyone. This is Compot. We're up late night tonight recording some good shit. We got a very special guest here. We got Ariel Rosenberg, records as Ariel Pink. You know him, you love him. I'm not gonna say anymore. He has a lot of great albums. Go check him out. I was listening to your latest album today, by the way. I thought it was really good.
Cool. That's nice of you.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here, man. This is great.
We really appreciate it.
No problem. It's my pleasure.
But we got a lot to talk about. We got to talk about the secret power of the Jews, and in a good way.
We're not going to get banned.
Not in any canceled kind of way.
And I think we're Jews, right? So we can use our own word, right? I mean, like,
we're empowering ourselves.
We can be anti-Semites and not get canceled, right? Basically.
Yeah, I don't know. For those of you who don't know, you oftentimes get into like little controversies and shit. I won't go into.
I'm already off to a bad start. I can already tell. This is gonna be a terrible. This is not gonna go well for me.
No, this is beautiful stuff. We just gotta contextualize everything for people.
Contextualize, yes.
Yeah.
That's the biggest problem, right? Isn't that the lack of context?
Are you a student of hermeneutics?
No, I don't even know what that means.
It's like this school of philosophy that deals with like meaning and textual meaning, and it originally started out like in the 18th century for interpreting like biblical texts. Like, like when people say shit like this part in Plato or whatever is an interpolation. It comes from a later time. Like, that's hermeneutics.
Right. I mean, it's pretty much what I just kind of define as philosophy and yeah. I mean, I guess a branch of philosophy or a branch of analytical. I mean, yeah, meaning. I guess. Yeah. I mean, it's a whole conundrum. It's a real. It starts to really curl in on itself.
Are you big into philosophy at all?
I'm much more of a sort of like a bullshit artist or something like that. Like, I mean, I kind of think that that the world is more or less that all these conversations are very, very cool and very good, and very, very much an indication that our lives are somewhat that we've got things in order, that we can actually sit down here and talk about these things, and we're not scrambling to hide from other people like ourselves. We're just around the corner with shotguns and
you sound like
spears.
you're a student of like semiotics and stuff. Now you're talking my language. Now you're getting into like, there's some great philosophers like Georg Hamann, who's really into like, I'm really into like the hermeneutic, like linguistic, sort of like historical line of philosophy. And
Are you a Chomskyan?
No, I mean, I would say that I'm more of like people like
B.F. Skinner.
Wittgenstein.
B.F. Skinner.
B.F. Skinner. I have a lot of problems with like behavioral psychology, and I don't know if you want to go into that because I have a lot of theories about how like the CIA funded the creation of like a lot of like behavioral science, like in social psychology. That's like my contention.
You think that they started that?
Under the reigns of Alan Dulles.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
I think that the Frankfurt School or something like that was a little bit more responsible for that.
now here's where we get into it, Ariel. You may not be aware, but Herbert Marcuse of the Frankfurt School was a CIA agent.
Was he?
Oh no, okay, now I know where you're going with this, but what I'm saying is like we can take this back to Sabati Zvi, okay? I mean we can take this back even further to the Freemasons, okay? We can also take this back to to other sort of unnationalistic elements or organizations that have managed to not be tied to territory and or a specific location for their longevity. You know what I'm saying? So once you have like a another order that's like another sort of like a I guess another community, as you will, or like a sort of a secret society, as you will. As soon as you have those things, those things operate outside of the realm of any kind of real. They operate behind the scenes, and that's just by definition that's what they do. So you're now. I mean, like all secret societies sort of like have like a more than like just a passing link to each other. I mean, they're it's kind of like it's kind of like what the record labels do all the time. Is that they basically fold and start up again, and incorporate. They sort of branch off. They change presidents, and then they start their own subsidiaries, and then there's a new group of the same people. They have a new name. It's the same philosophy. They have like a new. All of a sudden, there's an
because I know exactly what you're talking about.
A corporate acquisition, and overnight, BMI becomes Sony and whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Because you have like the Rosicrucians, and then you have like the Freemasons, and it's like the same little little group reincorporating over and over again. And
it's all the same. The idea is that like you can't you just want to be like you want to be able to like sort of like dodge somebody being able to point at you. You know what I'm saying? We can easily like say, oh, the U.S. is the problem, or we can say that like capitalism is the problem, blah blah blah. But like you can those things are like we can point to those things a lot easier. Those things are like more or less stationary, so we can basically they're easy targets. You could say Washington's the problem, and it's like okay, well, why don't we just blow it up? Okay, well, it's kind of like a little bit stronger than that. Whatever you do to change the U.S., whatever you do to change like a country from the inside, is just going to make it stronger, because it's going to be basically still it's going to be alive in name again. I mean, like any revolution that you have in anything is going to. I mean, are we talking about dissolving all the idea of the oppressive this fascistic state? I mean, like what is the real enemy here? I mean, like what is the real problem? It's like not the U.S., not the U.S. government even.
There's actually a really interesting book. It's called The Anglo-American Establishment, and it was written by Bill Clinton's mentor, Carroll Quigley is his name, and he has written a couple of books like as his perspective. Like he claims to be like an academic like insider of like the secret movement, the deep state or whatever. And so he's right. And this guy is like a real deal. Like Bill Clinton has read and endorsed his books. Like that's the real deal of it.
Is he on the Epstein Island Rolodex?
I want to know.
The Black Book? Yeah, I mean he might be on the Black Book if he's friends with Clinton. I don't know. I mean, like I mean. I'm just saying it's. I just think that these things are like very. I love this subject, man, because I'll just go off and on. I mean, I'm definitely not one with answers here. I'm just I'm here to like poke holes in the boat. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't. I'm an agent of I'm a wrecker of civilization here. I mean, like that's obviously I'm not like here to like sort of provide solutions as much as ask questions, which brings me back to the fucking, what I think really unites Jewry in all of its many, in all of its many facets. It's a sort of a moving target that you can't fix it. You can't point out. You can't aim anything at it because we're going to change the goalpost every single time.
Now let me ask you this, like serious question. So there is accusations that come, especially from like far right people, who will go after like heretical Jews, like Spinoza and people like that, and then claim that they're sort of like they have introduced nihilism into.
They're
West.
kind of right. I mean, Spinoza was on the sort of he was on the sort of the more tame side of it. But I mean, you're talking about Jacob Frank. I mean, he pretty much he may as well have been the Messiah as prophesied in the Old Testament, because for all intents and purposes, he secularized Judaism in mass. I mean, everybody fell for Savati's eye. I mean, all the Jews everywhere. I mean, the grapevine, there was a time. It's like irrefutable proof. I mean, it's like
could you explain this just for a minute for people who don't know where this is the Jewish guy Messiah?
Basically, like, in the 1600s, so about 1666, actually, a very I believe he was Turkish. Was he Turkish Jew? I'm not sure, but he was there was a Jew who he had a bipolar disorder or something like that, but he was sort of plagued with visions, and he had a hard time with stuff. But he basically started hearing, he heard the word of God. God spoke to him and basically told him that he was the Messiah, and he managed to get some of the more reputable I guess some of the authorities, I guess, or some of the biggest, the best experts to sort of his one. Yeah, he had like one of the most esteemed young I guess, I don't know, what do you call them, priests or like, just saintly kind of psychics, I guess you would call them. He got him on board to basically, like, he agreed that he was the Messiah. So basically he had his witness, and word spread that this guy, he was very reputable, like all throughout Europe and elsewhere, for being sort of just not full of shit. He was like, sort of like he sort of like was a very, very, he was like the sort of Drudge Report of the Jewish people at the time. Okay, and there was actually a lot of, this was a time of peace, relatively. There was Jews in Poland, there was Jews everywhere, and they were. And they all had a sort of like, a sort of like inside track to whatever was going on in the Jewish state, like in Jewish affairs everywhere. So it's kind of sort of that way now, but it's a little less, a little more atomized now. But anyway.
Have you ever read like Marx's On the Jewish Question? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Marx is a Jew.
Yeah. Have you like read that particular work of his?
Yeah, I find Marx to be incredibly just obnoxious with his tone of writing and his philosophies about life. I mean, I feel like it's the height of juvenile delinquency and just stupidity. I mean, I can't even like. Like the idea of labor and all that kind of stuff. Just like, it seems like it's a complete, like it's just like it's like this is what happens when people say that, like, an education is not it couldn't be a bad thing ever. But I'm just saying, it's like, no, there's casualties from too much education. And people that like not that he had too much education. I'm just saying, like, he read stuff. He was like he's an intellectual. I mean. There's damage there. I mean, I know people that, like, your average incel and your average SJW suffers from over education about things like that's it's the damage done by school, not by drugs. You know what I'm saying? Like, you guys all give sobriety a bad name.
Because I believe that there's way too much education.
Specifically, I'm saying. Like, the world of, like, that's online, the world online, which is basically everybody under 40. They're all, you guys can be as fit, slimmed down, and centered as you want to be, as open and sort of like idealistic as you want to be. But I just think it's just basically, that's just like the products of just being living in a privileged society. You guys are, you guys should all be, everybody should be, nobody has a right to live. I think it's like everybody should be lucky that they haven't been stomped out by some stormtrooper with a fucking gun, man.
I mean, I agree with your general premise here that there's just way too much education. Like,
no, but I mean, it actually creates like actual like bugs of thinking that like are just mental retardation. Marx is like a perfect, like, he's like a fly trap. You know what I'm saying? Like he's like fly paper. Like he just attracts other idiots like him. And I mean, and that's why I'm such. I kind of like, I mean, I'm almost one of them. You know what I'm saying? Like but I veer on the side of. I mean, like I said, like Stirner makes much more sense to me. Like Stirner is to me like a somebody, like he's somebody that I like because he makes sense to me. He sort of like has a sense of humor that that appeals to me in regards to actually engaging with these arguments and these philosophies. Like I just think that the whole idea of like permanent revolution, that's just Occupy Wall Street. It's just the French Revolution all over again. That doesn't mean anything. It's just like, okay, yeah, let's loot the fucking let's fucking storm the Bastille. Let's get it back. Let's fucking get it back. Like, I mean,
do you think the failure of all revolutions just proves that Stirner was correct?
No, I don't think he even had any. I don't think he was even addressing that.
But do you think like his egoism, like ultimately these revolutions fail because of like that Stirner was right about like the ultimate egoism of people?
Stirner was like, just like when he was writing that book, I think he was specifically he was not referring to the proverbial I or the proverbial ego. I think he was just referring to himself in a completely circular way. Like, I mean, I just think that like he had no, he was not trying to like to put down a praxis or something like that, or like some sort of like a idea that like could be applicable to anybody else. Like I think it was just an expression. It was like a piece of art. You know what I'm saying? It was just like a recursive dead end, and it was just kind of like taking like a shit like on like the city hall's front lawn or whatever. It's like just like it's kind of like it's just it wasn't meant to be. It was just an expression of self. It wasn't a guide for liberation or for communicating with people or anything like that. I just don't think. I think that whether he was right, like, I mean, what he says in his book is just like poetry to me. It's like prose.
So it's like more of like a pure like literary work, just because it's so individualistic to him that it's like inapplicable to everyone else.
It's like a tone poem. It's like the repetition, the sort of like the way that he recursively thinks. It's basically like it's actually Hegelian. It's the whole the whole dialectic, the synthesis, all the things that Marx was using, but he was basically using them to another aim in coming to a different conclusion, not using the terms labor, but kind of having the synthesis in his own way. And he did it first. So I think that Marx in many ways owes it to Stirner that he was in such opposition to Stirner, which is funny to me because it's like this guy was like he was just like the guy that was like in the classroom or in the group that was just basically like he was older than everybody else, but he was kind of quiet and not taking part in the whole the sort of the mission. He wasn't like part of the mission. He was just part of like he was the turd in the punch bowl in the whole fucking like group, But he was like he had already written his book without
because I find all this really interesting what you're saying, because like I feel like you have Hegel and he talks about like the master slave like dialectic and stuff and I feel like people take that in a very literal term to apply to like class distinctions, but like it really it's phenomenological. It like applies to like the development of like the mind. And
the question is, would Hegel's book, could Hegel have written Being in Time and made it like 10 pages rather than, it was every word absolutely necessary in that book? No, to me it's just like Stirner. It's kind of like, when I think about Schoenberg, like what I'm saying, or Bach, when you kind of like you use certain rules to sort of create a new language and a new mode of thinking, and you basically set off on another course completely, and it's undeniable. And what you're doing is sort of like, you're putting it into practice, the actual philosophy itself. So it's a demonstration in its purest form of basically, I think it's masturbation is what it is. It's just like a very, very just perverse kind of continuing, it's just kind of like mulling over a certain type of algorithm that you've sort of that you've come up with, and you're basically applying it to the very, it's a very Wittgenstein type activity. You know what I'm saying? It's just
it's like Hegel is like Hegel is describing what Stirner is.
He was on his way to basically, we were on our way to the postmodern, towards Lacanian and nonsensical schizophrenia. You know what I'm saying? That's where the sort of the culmination of our Bach was one step in what Bach started idealistically, and with the pride of history on their side, and an evolved and civilized culture that had for centuries sort of just blossomed in Europe, despite the church being there. That was all basically that. Bach is the first step towards Little Yachty. You know what I'm saying? He's the first step towards Ariel Pink.
It's
this is where we've ended up. This is where we.
This is the development of rationalism, I think, of reason. I feel throughout the history of modern civilization, our faculty of reason has been developing in a certain way. I think Bach was an important.
It's over. I believe that it's sort of overstayed its welcome, because there's really I think that the more that humans, I think wherever humans look, or wherever they think, or whatever they think about, or whatever they search for, or they probe into, it's kind of like a guy who destroys the specimen, or the piece under the microscope, under the electron microscope, because the heat just basically just kills the cells off. You know what I'm saying? We just basically, anything that we look at, we will burn a hole through it. Any kind of piece of knowledge that we any kind of new discovery, if we look at it,
this is I think that
for long enough time, we will burn a hole right through it, like a laser. It's like you want to keep scanning, so we don't want to focus too hard on any one thing, because we'll basically peel the layer of the onion and go one further, and we don't want to. We want to be right. We want to get to some sort of
I totally 100% agree with you. And what's so interesting is that this is literally the history of modern philosophy, from Descartes to Kant. And if you read when Hegel and shit, when they wrote books that were here's the history of philosophy, and Hegel said shit philosophy is the history of philosophy, and this is literally what the development of rational philosophy is reason developing its hypercritical powers to lord over everything and becoming way too powerful. And then
I think intelligence is obviously not a very important thing to it's not what makes the world go round. I mean, what makes the world go round is obviously not intelligence. What makes people reproduce is not a good education. All the things that we do here, that basically sort of that sort of safeguard us as individuals, like, towards the pursuit of happiness, for one, at the very least. I mean, like, everybody's got a right to be happy. That's sort of like our credo here, and it's like, but it's not a very good long-term solution. You know what I'm saying? Like, intelligence and forethought and deliberation and experience and restraint in action is actually, those principles do not make the world go round. That's not what's going to make it to tomorrow. Those things will go extinct willfully, because we don't, like, I mean, anybody who's like 30 years old or 40 years old knows better than to basically, like, once they've made a nest egg for themselves, they know that why would they have a kid? The dream is over. The whole, the fantasy of the marriage and that thing is done. It's like, that's for kids. That's what makes the world go round, is kids having babies having babies. The ignorant.
Are you gonna reproduce? Are you gonna sow your
I
seed?
mean, I have expect that I already have. I mean, I'm expecting a knock on the door any day now. There's gonna be like some 7 foot tall black dude that's gonna be like, "Hey, Dad."
Did you ever see like Jeffrey Epstein, when he was talking about how he had these elaborate plans to like impregnate like hundreds of women, and that he wanted to build like a maternity ward on his island?
Wow, that's just really that's so devious. Wow, I mean, that just sounds like so devious. Like, I mean, like, just like to think he's gonna splooge in like 20 girls. Oh my God! And he's gonna try to like have babies with them. That's terrible. Like, I mean, Screaming Jay Hawkins is rolling in his grave right now because of, I mean, he had 75 kids, just from touring around. And did you hear about the guy like in Nashville that that went to Ancestry.com? They're like the two guys that separately went to Ancestry.com, not knowing each other. Okay, they didn't know, but Ancestry.com picked up on it. They were like, wait a second, these guys are looking for like their dad. They don't know each other. They came completely separate, and they actually happen to have the same dad. So they decided to look into it and see who this guy fathered around in if he fathered any other people in and around Nashville. And it turns out that this guy's like 95 years old or whatever. He's like still alive, never had kids as far as he knew, and he's linked to 1,400. He's got 1,400 like people in the area that he's fathered. Okay, like, I mean,
What a legend.
I mean, but do you know how that happens? Like, so they like searched him out, and they're just like, he was a mailman. Okay, he was a mailman in the 60s.
Oh shit!
So this
He was
explains
delivering
it, okay?
his seed.
He was like, the guy is like going over. He's delivering the mail every day to the houses, right? Daddy, like husband's at work, and mom is just there, and he's and so anyway, so like Ancestry.com did an interview, and they're like, just like, hey man, what was your secret? Okay, we just want to know. And he's like, well, I did one hell of a Johnny Cash impersonation. And that's it, man. Like he just managed to, like, be that stud that every fucking girl wanted, just because he fucking he and that's, and I mean, and he didn't have 1,400 kids, mind you. I mean, that's he probably had a few hundred, or like even maybe less than 200 or something like that. But now they have kids, and so like his genetic line is basically linked to 1,400 people, directly linked to him. So
This is like Genghis Khan type shit.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, it's selective breeding.
So we're all like, the future of the human race is everyone is a really good Johnny Cash impersonator.
I mean, this is why I joined the men's rights activists because they they sort of, they're the ones who are like out there like saying that the studies show that if you have a guitar and you walk into a fucking bar and you try to get girls' numbers, you can have a better chance.
So
getting
what's your take on like the men's right shit? I don't know exactly where you stand. Someone told me that you were like kind of into it, and then you said that.
I'm just like my own thing, man. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not, like I said, I feel like I feel like I've done a lot for some gender bending, believe it or not. I mean, like I've been gender bending for a long time, and I feel like I helped sort of open that up, and I'm nothing if not queer in spirit, in size and stature, in my whole. I mean, I'm definitely a vote for the marginalized. I suppose I'm a freak, and I'm very proud of it. I don't.
You're like a true freak. I like a really.
I know I'm a fucking weirdo,
Yeah.
and weirdos are nowadays more dangerous. If
They're
I had
rarer.
no,
Having
but
like a real weirdo. Like I'm not talking about like because you're
no,
like
I'm not as weird as like 90% of these bowl cut wearing guys that go and shoot up fucking, fucking malls and fucking churches and shit like that. Like they're not like weird like I am. Like like they're not. I don't know if they were made fun of in school. They were just they were just not popular, and they just were fucking disaffected. Sure, but they were fucking they're still playing with fucking with their toy guns. I was never playing with toy guns, man. I'm a fucking freak, dude. I'm a loner, and I just basically like don't expect anybody to fucking get on board on my side. I don't want to. I don't want anybody on board.
yeah. We're not associated with any movements here. We're an army.
I know
of,
that.
Yeah.
That's why we're talking. And I mean, even if you were, it's like I would talk to you anyway. But like,
No, I
but
totally, I 100%. I really respect what you're saying right now because
I
this is exactly how I feel.
I have no affiliation with no affection for anybody any more than anybody else, any nation more than anybody else. I think of things a certain way. The whole world has to make sense to me. It probably doesn't make sense when you break it down, and I'm sure like I've got like some real emotional problems when it comes down to it, and I'm just basically a screaming vagina, basically. I'm just a very, very, I've got, my therapist said that I had an excess of oxytocin probably in my system. So that's probably why I have attachments.
Do you
and I'm
like?
so kind of,
Do you find like therapy helpful? I've seen a therapist before.
I mean, I kind of like, I went throughout my childhood, I was seen as defective, and I basically like I know the whole thing. I mean, I feel like I've been traumatized by therapy. I feel like I recreate the doctor patient dynamic anytime I engage with anybody. It's like all of a sudden it's just you and me. It's like and like on like a couch somewhere. And,
I think that's like I talk about that sometimes, like the over like how a lot of young guys today. I've heard you talk about like in interviews in the past about like sort of like gifted child syndrome type of stuff. Like
yeah, I mean it's right, exactly like the child actors, kind of like the whole idea that you peak at if you were given any, if you learned anything in your if you got any sort of if you were an AP English, or if you were like an honor roll student, or you would like you excelled in anything, it's just gonna prepare. It's just not. It doesn't prepare for the downfall. Prepare for the fall, and it kind of like sets your expectations a little bit too high for the future. And
yeah, it fucks you
in
up.
reality, your childhood is supposed to be miserable, so that you basically make it to adulthood, and then once you're free, you're just like never looking back, and you're just like, whoa, dude, I can do whatever I want, and you forget very quickly how terrible life is and how miserable you were as a child, and that's how the cycle continues, because as long as once you forget that, then it just frees you up to completely walk all over the rights of 5-year-olds. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know if you agree with this. This is like my hot take, but like I talk about like how a lot of the school shooters like one of the common experiences that they all have is that, you know, they have this experience of like going to therapists and shit from when they're very young and being like
being
lorded.
eating it up. I mean, I guess what it is that like they part of them, I think is really they're really just suicidal for the most part. Okay, I mean, like these are people that are so that are or psychopathic or whatever you want to call it. You know, I mean, like they're psychopathic probably most of the time because they don't have like any empathy, I guess, for living things, and they just think that, like, you know. But for the most part, I think even like, you know, even terrorists are really it's a misnomer. I mean, they're people that want to die, and if they're going to die, if they want to die for something, they're not going to die for suicide because because society just treats suicides like, you know, your whole life becomes a cautionary tale in the aftermath. It's like, oh, Robin Williams was such a talent, but such a tragedy. Look at what he was, really just a miserable guy, guys. It's a cautionary tale. That's what happens when you fucking when our society, the way that we're so afraid of suicides, what it means to us in our Judeo-Christian atheist agnosticism, that basically we basically still treat suicide as this sort of like not an accident, but like more of a you know, like not like a mood swing, not just like a kind of like a freak accident like it should be, because I mean they just basically it's kind of more triumphant than that. I mean they made the decision and they did it if they kill themselves, but I think that, like, yeah, we cannot praise that aspect of it, of course. So we basically just deny the whole premise of suicide and the whole the honor that it sort of imbues a person with, you know, because it is a culmination of but it could also be, and more often than not, it's just the culmination of somebody being, you know, drunk and sort of flirting, you know, just kind of being on the ledge of a building and just sort of like, you know, allowing themselves to sort of trip out a little bit enough to basically make a misstep and fall over and just happen to not miss. So it's a freak accident for the most part. But I think that even like terrorists and people that kill other people, it's just like, you know, once you don't care about your life, or you feel like, you know, you're just going to go out and that you've made peace with that, you're just going to go out in the blaze of glory because you don't even care about life. So why wouldn't you just kind of join some sort of cause and then just fucking commit suicide in the name of that cause? You know, that'll at least that'll spare you the fucking obituary and the column and the sad realization for your parents that you won't be going to heaven anytime soon. You know, I mean, that's a terrible. You know, I would just jump out in front of a car or something like that, or make it look like an accident or something.
So the society like makes a prolonging of your life.
It makes the act of suicide the most. It perverts it into being the saddest saddest outcome, because it reflects badly on, because we're because everybody feels very responsible for other people. This is a good thing. Okay, it's like the guilt that we have as Christians basically is good, because we have empathy for and we feel responsible. People that, like, you know, the loved ones that like feel like they could have done more, and so they blame themselves, and it's an act of aggression, really, when somebody like does that to themselves. You know, but we also put a lot of pressure on these people, on these kids, to not do that to their parents. You know, like that's the weight of the world on their shoulders. They can't do anything. They have to just basically like have a smile on their face and do great things in their life, so that everybody else can feel okay. And
I always contend that I feel like this is like what I mean. Like when I say like I think there should be less education. Like I don't mean that ironically. Like I think that like.
No, there should be less school altogether.
Yeah, less school altogether, and lower expectations.
Less parenting, less monitoring your knowing where your kids are. Like just like there should be like less parenting, less fucking I mean, there should be some parenting, but there should be a little bit of it should be hands off. There should be a little bit more hands off.
Because I'm
You
really
don't
into
need-
like Rousseau's theories of education, and he has a book called Emile, where he like lays out his like pedagogical like philosophy. And in that
What
book,
is it?
he says shit like, you know, children should not be allowed to read until they're like 13. He has like 3 books that he's approved that kids
Killers
should
aren't
learn.
allowed to breed until they're 13. What?
That children shouldn't be allowed to learn how to read. Like they should
Learn
remain.
how to, so it's like Montessori school type stuff.
Yeah, like they should be illiterate until they're 13. And
They
that,
should do whatever they want. Basically, they should find the focus that suits them, and then do the reading afterwards.
yeah, and
That's
he
the last thing they
focuses a
should do.
lot
If-
on like motor skill development, like and like
Yeah.
physical things for like the first 13 years.
Is this like a Waldorf type?
Yeah, it's a Waldorf thing. It's a Montessori Waldorf. Yeah, that's totally what it is.
Did you go to a Waldorf school by any
No,
chance?
no, I didn't. I went to a Reformed Jewish elementary school.
I went to a Waldorf school.
But it was probably as expensive. But I don't know. There's actually very reasonable Montessori schools out there. Very, very, and they probably have a good. They have a better track record than public schools, especially out here in LA.
Let me ask you this, like, so like Bernie Sanders and shit, he has a lot of stuff that he says about like college and how we should subsidize college further and like send more kids to school, college, and like I like appreciate where his heart is at.
The idea of free
He's
education.
being
But-
disingenuous, man. He's being disingenuous.
Yeah, but I feel like
people don't even want to graduate from high school. There's like 50% of students will not graduate from high school, so there's no interest for the most part.
I feel like way fewer people should go to college. Like I feel like 2/3 of all colleges should be allowed to go bankrupt. When
I mean, college is just like not like that important in the grand scheme of things. It's just not. It's not like really. It's not giving you the experience that's going to fill you. That's going to be going to be useful to you in the years to come.
You went to art school or some shit, right?
No, you got it. You have it at your fingertips. Everything that you need to know about where the future is going is online. I mean, like it's all basically you just need to know in the immediate future. If you want to fucking like get like a foothold in any kind of industry, or like you want to learn some skills that are going to be useful to you later on, you do it by playing Angry Birds at like 3 years old. You know what I'm saying?
Everyone is an autodidact, pretty much.
I say that because I'm nestled square in that generation that never had that opportunity, and also is like looking at basically has skills that are pretty much obsolete and has a and is pretty much unemployable and doesn't have the numbers that your generation does.
Oh yeah,
So-
you talked about this before. I've seen you and how you continue to make music because you don't have any other marketable skills.
I just don't. I'm not going to be. This is my best shot at having a career.
Yeah.
I kind of overshot the mark. I mean, I just I didn't put myself into college to do anything like that. Like, I mean, I didn't throw myself into the educational apparatus. I basically just left college. I guess I could have gone if I really wanted to do something. I mean, I'm sure my dad would have appreciated if I went to Harvard for law or for anything, really. But I probably, it would have all been for nothing, really. It would still be a fucking total disgrace once I graduated from there. I mean, unless I was. I mean, nowadays it's like I think you could be in whatever kind of job as a lawyer that you want to get. If you want to be like get into law, and you go to the best law school, your student loans you will not pay it back if you're like in the highest tier. If you're working at the best firm, it doesn't work out. But of course, you already probably have money anyway if you're doing that. But as far as like it making sense, in some sort of economic sense, like like if you're going to Harvard and you're going to the best schools and you have the best education, it's because you already have that privilege to basically not be in the workforce. That's all. That's all that it buys you, and you can busy yourself with lots of things that you like, and all sorts of interesting classes and ideas and exchanges and all that kind of stuff. But it's not really, it's not the meat of the working man. You know what I'm saying? It's not it's really not that. They don't really care about that stuff. Most people don't care about that stuff. Most of the people have to work jobs, and there's like a few exceptions to that. Artists are exceptions because they don't really care about money. So like they just like to, I mean, artists are also the ones that are making a lot of money if they're in the art world, but like most artists are happy to just sort of do their art and, you know, sort of like make it a hobby, and maybe live in squalor just to
like the big problem with universities today is I feel the fact that like we send so many people to like college, it dilutes the quality of the education.
I think there should be a draft. Personally, I think there should be military should be mandatory.
Yeah, they have like in Israel,
like they do in Israel and in Greece and in Turkey and in like lots of nations.
Do you think that would? Do you think?
Yeah. Well, those nations haven't been at war, the ones that like have mandatory ones. So yeah, maybe I think if everybody had like, you know, skin in the game, they would be a little bit. They would think twice before letting you know, some bozo in the White House who's there for 4 years just to you know, tell him to go off and do some shady shit, go liberate some fucking country.
Why can this never change? Do you like? I feel like no matter who is president, like the deep state or whatever is always going to ultimately have the control and just keep going to war. I feel like there's like no point in democracy.
Hey, I mean, Trump has not gone to war. He hasn't gone to war. He's been very, very against going to war.
But they've been pushing him so hard. Like when he was gonna, like they wanted him to bomb Iran, and then he like
pulled out last second.
Everybody wants something. Wants his green light for something. And I mean, I'm saying it's like none of it matters though, because because when you're in the White House, you can basically say no to all those things. But yeah, of course you're gonna get fucking 1,001 different people coming to you for any number. They're all gonna come to you for.
I don't feel like if you're president, you can say no. Like I feel like that's destroyed presidents.
He does.
And I feel like
that's what's so good. That's what's so amazing to see.
I feel like he holds it.
Refreshing to see. And I hate
holds
to say
it really well.
I'm not like I'm glad he's an asshole. I'm glad he's an asshole. I'm glad that the world is basically like this is what happens. This is what happens when we give you, you know, America. You can't outsmart us, man, because we're too smart. We will have the nicest, most fucking humanitarian president the world has ever known. Everybody fucking is like cheering. The world is so relieved when we have Obama. He's got the, you know, everybody liked him. He was a great speaker. He's inspiring, and the world leaders around the world, they all just like sigh of relief. This is finally like this is, and it's just like, oh yeah, America, like, you know, is a good place again, man. Like they're like really like they're forging ahead, and they're doing something that, like, you know, that they're really like setting the standard for the world. Okay, well, you know what happens when you have a nice guy in a guy that basically is just willing to bend over for like for all of his you know, for lobbied interests. It's like, okay, well, yeah, okay, he didn't really do anything. He didn't say anything too controversial. He didn't admit that we are backing Israel, and in that vacuum, look what happens. Like you get the boycott and divestment, like basically like taking over taking the space and the publicity and the time. They take the opportunity to basically go and get the world to think of Israel in a different way. And in those 8 years, they've managed to like do a very, very good job at basically turning Israel into like, you know, a hot topic among lots of other people. I mean, most people don't even know what the fuck, you know, what's going on in Israel. It's in the United States.
But I'm on the same page as you here, because I feel like Trump does say no, but I feel like a lot of the investigations and shit that come at him are like the retaliation of the people who want him to say yes.
Oh my god! Oh my god! It is the most, the whole Russia thing, the Russia probe. Oh my god! That is the most. That was such a. Listen, it's like if you're wondering if there was collision, the Russians intervened. mean, keep in mind, like, I mean, we were like all for the Russians about 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, before the presidency the campaign started. Okay, like what we were watching Russia Today for our fucking news. Okay, everybody was fucking into the Russians, like not 5 minutes ago, and everybody seems to have forgotten that. All of a sudden, the narrative is Clinton doesn't like him. It's like the Red Scare all over again. Okay, so all of a sudden, she's basically. She had to use the Russia as, like, you know, sort of the straw man to basically make it seem like that was something that was really a credible, like, a problem. I mean, first of all, it would be her problem. It would be the establishment's problem, not Trump's. Trump is not even elected into Washington yet. Okay, he's got no power. The establishment, who is supposed to be responsible for making sure that Russians cannot meddle. It was the establishment, the one that she was in, the one that was in power for the past 25 years. That's what the establishment was. Okay? It was on their clock. They fucking failed to fucking make our election process safety proof, you know, like unhackable against the Russians. Not fucking Donald Trump. If Donald Trump collaborated with Putin to try and get himself elected, good for him. I mean, good for them. I mean, it's like what are the chances that's going to work out? Why wouldn't you try that out? If I was Putin, why wouldn't I try to meddle in somebody else's election to see if I could? What's wrong with that? It's not illegal. I don't live in America. They can't sue me for this. They should thank me. They should thank me if I highlighted weakness. They should fucking thank me. Maybe next time they won't fucking they'll make it more, you know, robust against any.
Because I feel like this is the ultimate point about Putin, is that he is the leader of Russia, and he needs to do like what is in the best interest of like Russia, and like you have like the McCain people.
I would, if I could meddle in anybody's election process, in Israel's, if I had some way that I could persuade, if I could have an effect. Why wouldn't I do that? Why wouldn't I go for it and try it out? What's wrong with that? Why is that so bad? Why is that what breach is that of? He's in another country. There's no rules. I mean, never mind that we do that and more everywhere else. I mean, that's just it's just really getting a piece of our own net. We meddle with everybody else. But
yeah,
why
it's
all
such
of a sudden,
bullshit. You know, we've rigged the elections like in Italy.
Aside from being hypocrites, just for 1 second,
Yeah.
Never mind that we're being hypocritical about it. But even so, I mean, what's wrong with that? If he manages to do press in the United States, if he manages to persuade some political, if all of a sudden if he manages to get Pussy Riot to turn themselves in because he managed to get the world into thinking that they were degenerate porn stars that were just out there spreading AIDS with everybody. I don't even care. He could come up with whatever. If he was successful at doing that, then you can't fault him for it. I mean, it's like you can't fault Rose McGowan for fucking bringing down Harvey Weinstein. You gotta thank her for that. It's like that's influence. That's the power that you have, and you're going to use that. So if he has power to affect American elections, you can't just say that it was a fucking crime that he did that, and you can't blame it on a fucking guy who's not in power yet, who wouldn't be able to have that power in the first place. And then you do it after he wins. Just because you're a fucking sore loser, just because you fucking didn't bother to make sure that the electoral college, because you already knew who they were and they knew who you were, you've dealt with them all this time, you didn't bother making sure that they were in your pocket. They didn't like her. They knew her. They've been there for since Clinton, so they know exactly what kind of bullshit she's full of. So she didn't bother pandering to them and basically trying to win them over. She just she just went to the popular vote and expected the electoral college to do the bidding of their specific demographic.
Yeah,
so that was a big mistake on her part. Okay,
this is like Stirnerist
That's all it was.
politics
That's all
now.
it was. It's not a fucking has nothing to do with Russia and the whole fucking the media. The media is the biggest fucking idiot in the whole fucking thing. They're just like they've got so much blood on their hands, but they're not even like a real person. It's like they're just like, no, we're going to give you the news about that. We're going to break the stories about, Me Too. We're gonna. There's accusations from here. There's accusations from there. We basically like have to deliver this news to you because we don't ever want to be accused of not reporting that stuff to you ever, because we always reported that stuff to you. But do you really think for a second that the media and like the journalists and like the fucking like the networks didn't know that Harvey Weinstein and that the pedophile, all these people in the industry were like such fucking pedophiles and like all the degenerate shit? They're the ones who make these fucking careers for these people. They're the gatekeepers. These guys wouldn't even have careers if the media, if TMZ didn't fucking actually know shit and not publicize it after being paid off for that. They frame, they had paparazzi out there and they fucking get dirt on people, and then those people buy it back, and then they allow that to happen. They don't report on shit because that's not in their interest. That's how they make their money.
It's like an Epstein panopticon.
Yeah, it's like
scheme.
Epstein. Like why haven't they been publicizing the Epstein thing? I've known about the Epstein thing for years and years. I've been following it. Nobody else follows that shit because they're not crazy like I am. But I mean,
it's crazy. Like Alex Jones talking about like Bill Clinton is a rapist.
I like Alex Jones.
Yeah,
I'm with Alex Jones now. I feel like he fucking said he admits that he was wrong. Yeah, I mean he's good that nobody will ever let him live it down though. Yeah, that's typical. That's typical groupthink.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I think
he's like
media monopoly.
I think he's right about like I think he's right about like I agree with him on the overall picture. I don't really agree on the details in like what the individual instances of fake news and all that kind of crap. And all
I can't I fucking hate. Leave everything up on the I want to go to YouTube and find Alex Jones videos. Like I don't need fucking YouTube telling me what to believe in. And have you seen that they put like conspiracy theory like warnings on a lot of shit if you look it up? Like if you look up like CIA,
I mean they're banning everything, man. Like I mean like Sophia's not even able to. She got banned completely, right? Isn't she got kicked off of YouTube?
Like
Soph.
Everyone, like they've banned Varg from YouTube.
They ban everybody, man. Like it's too easy to fucking. They can't afford to fucking let people just say what they want on YouTube, man. Like they are liable. It's obvious. It's like they become assistants to all this. They become 4chan essentially. So they can't do that. But that's what you get when you fucking when you start off with that premise, being a fucking hippie and making your internet totally transparent and basically it's there's no aristocrats who are going to be able to control you. You're going to have anonymous and hackers basically running the world. Great liberals. Yeah, lovely. Check it out. Look, this is what happened. Liberals can't control liberals. You think Parkland shooter wasn't liberal? It's like, give me a break, man. They're all liberal.
Yeah, I mean, it's like fucking YouTube and all these tech companies is like they in order to be out
YouTube
there,
is the only site on the web that I like. By the way, there's no other.
Yeah.
I don't like anything else on the web.
You don't like Twitter at all?
Is that really the web? I mean, I guess that it is, but that's an app. But I mean, I don't know. I don't use Amazon. I don't order shit. I don't go shopping. I don't care about anything. I like Wikipedia is fine. Everything's fine. Every website's fine. The only thing that I'm so happy for YouTube. I don't ever have to pay for any music anymore. It's all for free now.
Oh
You don't
yeah,
have
I
to pay
love
for any
stuff on there.
movies.
I love that's
Yeah,
all
I
where I
mean,
go to.
it's
I
so
don't like
great.
Spotify and shit because
No, Spotify's the anti-YouTube.
you can't
But
find shit on there like any good good old
exactly,
records.
I want to fucking hear shit nobody has, dude. And it's all up on YouTube, and it's all for free. And any record that I could get on Spotify, I could have already gotten it for free via YouTube. So there's no reason why Spotify should be there, except that it's there only to distract people from being aware of the fact that like they never had to pay for that ever since Napster. So they've had to they somehow managed to convince people that like oh you're doing a good deed by we pay the artists and we do all this stuff. It's like no, dude. The industry is fucking completely dead. Do you get it? You're making sure of it. Like it was already free. It's already been out there in the open. There's nobody expects to get paid anymore for their fucking music.
It reminds me of
Jesus
like
Christ.
Tesla and the caging of his energy production.
Oh, the Tesla Edison debacle.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I
Yeah.
feel like it's exactly that. Like
Free energy.
Yep.
Free information.
You can't have it, so they have to put a price on it and market it somehow.
I don't like well. That's the reason that I don't like any of these paid music services because I listen to shit like I want to find like I was listening today to like this record that like the Bill Wyman from the Rolling Stones produced called like The End Introspection. Have you heard that?
I haven't heard that. No.
And I just listen to shit like that, and none of it is up on Spotify. I just want to listen to like really like private pressing shit from like 1969 or something, and like none of it's fucking on any of the paid
Beach Boys
music
bootlegs.
services. Yeah, I fucking have like the hugest Beach Boys bootleg collection. Are you really into that?
Yeah, of course that. I mean, that's gold. All that stuff. I mean, I used to be obsessed with that stuff, and I mean, like when I was younger, especially, like I was, I only wanted to buy records if I couldn't find them at my friend's house, and that was a tall order after a while. So I stopped even looking for stuff after a while, and I started making it. And
I'm really autistic, so what I do is I'll put on like Beach Boys, like Sea of Tunes, like the Unsurpassed Masters, like session bootlegs, and just listen to like sessions.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I mean, I find I'm always looking for the scariest, most evil sounding thing in the world, and I found many an evil sound in those those kind of those bootlegs, all those bootlegs that are just kind of like just varied takes, different takes, different performances, and just the kind of like part of the band, just the stacco tracks.
I feel like I'm personally like an information like bootlegger. Like I'm a huge like bootlegs have kept all this shit alive when a lot of these tapes and shit are being destroyed in fires over time or just being lost and shit. And then I feel like in terms of like information, like I'm always into like
you're the world needs you because you're basically the only person that has this information that you have, and that is your rod, man. That is what you're going to do. That's why you're important, and you've done your job, man. You've done the job that this world has made for you. You've made something of yourself. You've actually like absorbed stuff, and you have a way that you can teach people. I was watching Alex's footage, and I was just like, oh yeah, this guy needs to be a teacher, man. He's just a teacher. I don't know if do you actually teach at all?
No, I don't. I'm like completely self-read.
But I mean, I see it in your future, for better or for worse. I don't know what the fuck. I mean, you need to be teaching, and you're what are you doing? You don't need to be. You should do seminars like Momus online, World University on YouTube, and just do do history your version, your way, and without the kind of like without all the without all the if there's some other way to do it without maybe Patreon or maybe some other platform to do it on, but maybe YouTube is a little bit too police now, but but I would say, just find a forum. You'll get people like, signing up to be in your university and wanting to hear your take on things, and that's really it's necessary, because you're like you're the only person that's going to be able to like teach people about what is it? The guy you kept on mentioning, like Steiner or whatever.
Stirner.
Or,
Goethe?
No. I was talking about Stirner, but no, but you're like you're talking about this other German person.
Schiller?
Which one?
Schiller.
Schiller.
Yeah, Schiller's the man.
Yeah, I mean, I have to go in and check it out, because
He
now
was a complete-
I got my little list.
He was like an agoraphobic,
I
and
love it.
he was
box.
yeah, he had his own private box at the theater. Like Goethe designed like the theater in Weimar, and then he had his own private box in the theater that had to be like specially designed for him, so that no one would see him when he was there, because he didn't want to be looked
Phantom
at
of
in
the
public.
Opera.
Yeah, and then he was writing all the plays, but he was like a great philosopher in terms of just like aesthetics.
Right, that's what he sounds like. He sounds like an aesthetic guy, like kind of like Goethe and that kind of stuff. I mean, just like the kind of like a little sort of Renaissance man of sorts.
I know. I read a comment that from you where you said like art should be like therapeutic, but you should only have to like do it once. I mean,
it should be to an end. It's a means to an end. You should have to just. It's meant to be purged. If the goal is to be productive in art, then it's just basically just people wanting to be artists, and their identities are fixated on being artists and being productive as artists and just making work no matter what, even if they're not inspired. It's like, if you're not inspired to fucking make work, then oh shit, you threaten to not be an artist. It's like, what are you going to do with yourself? And it's like, that's a 13-year-old talking, man. Like nobody should aspire to be an artist. It's stuff that like, everybody should be at their core. You don't have to fucking like, study hard to be an artist, or like think of, be working to be an artist. Like that's just so retarded. You don't need anybody's permission to be an artist. You're supposed to be an artist. Like it's a one thing that like every kid can do.
So like that, and that's the one part of your statement is it reminded me of like there's this philosopher's name is Schlegel, and he has a comment that writing novels is like a completely like as an act of like self-development, and that like someone should also always be developing further, so they should always be writing more novels. So I don't know. I don't know if you can say it only happens once, like the therapy of art.
Well, no, I mean, listen, I mean, like people, no matter what field of work you're in, if you're like if you're a reputable or professional, or like if you're like the sort of the rock star of whatever field you are in, whether you're Emerald Lagasse, or if you're fucking George Ramsay, or if you're fucking a sports guy, or if you're a lawyer, or if you're Kim Kardashian, it doesn't even matter what. Everybody has to write a book. You're not famous until you write a book. You're not taken seriously as a doctor unless you write a book. And so you have to fucking write a book. Even if you don't write it, you have to get a ghostwriter to write it for you, because it's just part of the thing. It's like you have to get married. You have to fucking have kids. You have to fucking you have to like have a profession. You have to fucking own a home, and you have to fucking write a book.
When's your book coming out?
Never. If I write my book, and it'll be the biggest achievement I will have ever. I will consider it the biggest achievement. My life's work. I mean, like I probably will. I can't write, very well at all. I can only dictate. So I'd have to.
That's great. I mean, that's what Goethe did.
I mean, yeah, no,
Goethe dictated everything he wrote.
I know. I mean, I just need like a chick to basically like be typing away and just transcribing all this stuff, and maybe I'll have a semi-coherent book after it if she takes out all the uhs and likes and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I don't really know how to write. I don't have that wonderful facility that comes with experience and practice doing it and all that kind of stuff. And I envy it. I think it's the most amazing communicative form of communication, and
You wouldn't consider like your lyrics and shit to be writing, or
no, yeah, poetry is another thing. But I'm saying, like,
you mean like a memoirs or like
I'm saying like the form that is considered to be, there's a form. There's the way that you organize things in writing, so that they come off the page, and so they all have to they all, for the most part, follow the same laws, unless you're James Joyce, okay? In which case it doesn't even matter. It's like, that's just like kind of like writing for rights. Anybody who likes to read that stuff is just likes to read for reading's sake. I'm not that kind of person. I don't read infinite jest. It does not. If something doesn't like talk to me or like interest me in, if they're not making a point, if the point is not being made and not articulated well, I'm not going to just basically go down the rabbit hole, because I love the adventure of the holes in reading, like you were talking about, like the nonsense stuff. I mean, I can get into nonsense plenty, but I'm already doing that in my daily life, in 1,000 different other ways. But I definitely don't enjoy. It doesn't quiet my mind to read just anything, for not knowing where I'm going with it, not knowing if I'm just not a fan of it. Like I'm into like what they're saying. I'm into the points of things, and there's different ways to make a point. I'm into people. I kind of go for the thing that George Orwell said, which is, and I know it's a little bit simplistic, but the easiest way to say something is the best way, for the most part. The simplest way to get an idea across without all the fancy language to sort of distract you from what the actual substance is, political.
I think that some people treat writing as encoding. I think they have a lot of criticism when you get into that style of writing, where it's really obscure and it's what you said, it's reading for reading's sake. It's down the Hegelian rabbit hole, man. It's people that have too much time on their hands and can endlessly pontificate and sort of and for me, I think it is it should be an inspiration. It should be an expulsion. It should be an investigation of somebody sort of bearing their soul and seeing how far they can take it. But it's also the product of somebody solitary going through, having an uninterrupted conversation with themselves. And it's an ongoing, it's like not even allowing for anybody to step in at any point and chime in with their argument, being hey, wait, can you go back and can you go back 2 pages and what about that thing you said? It's like no, he's gonna go on with his point uninterrupted, and you're just gonna fucking take it, and you're gonna take his. You're in a trance. You're in a trance now, and his point has to be made over the course of 1,000 pages. It's really, if it can't be said on a stump, it's not a philosophy. That's how I see it. If it can't be if it can't be made plain and simple, it's like a form of hypnotism, where it's almost what the content of it is, it doesn't matter, but
that's
it's
right.
you're being
that's
hypnotized
right.
into their being
they're
their
all
mind
brainwashed.
Or whatever.
It's the educational brainwash. It's the satanic sigil of the sort of the alchemical magical prayer for this sort of for the AI future that we're all got, leaning towards. It's history's link. It's what's sort of the thread that binds all this information and all these old, the thing that keeps words alive a lot longer than humans. What makes us vessels for language to just sort of survive and outlive us, and these mindsets that sort of just basically they're these ghosts that the spooks that take over our brains, like Stirner says.
Have you ever read Neil Stephenson Snow Crash?
No, what is that? Is that fiction?
Yeah, that's fiction. That's a science fiction book, but it has a whole thing about how consciousness is a mind virus that's ancient Sumerian code that's is the operating system of the human.
It's a lot like it works the same way as the internet. I mean, it's like, or as binary code. I mean, Morse code. It's all derived from the same informational impetus. I mean, just like and then the connections that we make using it end up all kind of like amounting to the same kind of like, uh, sort of like what do you call it? Uh, Sort of cause and effect type uh, 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 jumps. It's sort of these conclusions about evolution and the history of organisms and cells and how they multiply, and the way that the DNA the DNA helix that and the RNA and the cell division, and the way that like we the code repeats itself and makes an exact copy of itself, and then it still continues to live on, but twofold now, and then it reproduces itself. It's all the same thing. Like we're all clones of clones of clones and clones. And that's the way that, like, unlike bacteria, which basically is just like one cell, and it basically can't communicate with other bacteria, but that isn't really touching it. It just sort of spreads out and grows, but like it's all the same cell, so it has contact with its tendrils and its fingers, as long as it's still like touching them. But a cell is like another way. Like the bacteria cell decided to divide itself at some point in our ancient history, and it only divided itself once, and in that division, it essentially created a sex differential.
Have you ever heard of the book The Origin of Consciousness and the Breakdown of the Bicameral Mind?
Julian Jaynes, yeah.
Yeah, are you into that?
I think it was a very, very. I think the argument is very very thought provoking, and I agree with it on several fronts. It's certainly not. I think that it's very hard to sort of like. I mean, it's been debunked, right? I mean, they say that it's been debunked.
I don't think it's been debunked. I don't think
it's been debunked either. I mean, I think it's some of the stuff that some of the conclusions that he comes to are absolutely, yeah, the case. They have to be the case. I mean,
I always feel like what he says is like very much actually in agreement with like what a lot of like people like Kant wrote about. But
yeah, I mean, I think that, like, the whole idea is it's an ingenious way to look at it.
I feel like Nietzsche in like Birth of Tragedy like says something very similar to what like Julian Jaynes is saying about like the role of like culture and language and the development of consciousness. Where like I feel
anything that has to do with like left brain, right brain, descriptions, for instance. I mean, it's a very patriarchal. I mean, basically everything that's like that science has sort of like been founded on has been the kind of that. So when they say like the left brain and the left brain is like the male brain, right side is female brain because it came sooner. It happened first. It was already latent. But the tool making part, that was distinctly male because the left side of our left hemisphere controls the right side. So our tool making hands. That was pretty much seen to be the role of. There was one book that was written by Leonard Schlein. Do you know have you heard of him?
No, I haven't. Please explain.
It was a very, very popular book in the 90s, I guess. The Alphabet versus the Goddess. He was a doctor. He was a brain scientist. He worked at Stanford. He made a connection that I think was very, very similar to he just the way that he sort of came up with his theory. He basically says that like it's a very kind of like progressive theory too. For the time, it was like it was very well received by people that like watched Oprah and stuff like that. But he was very smart about intelligent about his history. And he made all sorts of he taking evolution as a given. He thinks that like the advent of the fact that like that the writing, when we started writing, we started using our left brain more, and language seemed to take over as soon as like basically we were able to like put things to pen, and the pen being a left brain tool making thing. So basically, it was a man interjected into this world after hundreds of thousands of years of basically being more or less a worshiping community of worshiping the female, the mother goddess. In all this pagan early religions and in these primitive cultures, there was always Gaia, essentially, like there were like these gods that created the earth, and they were essentially, maybe they were like fertilized by there was a mother goddess, and then there was a male counterpart, and and they birthed humanity and these kinds of things. But when writing started to come around around the time of the Old Testament, specifically with the Hebrew alphabet, which is it's a pictorial. It's basically like they don't symbolize anything. They're not drawings. They're not hieroglyphs. It's an alphabet that has characters, and they're basically it's a language that basically you would have to experience linearly. So reading is a very left brain function too, because you focus on one line at a time instead of the whole page. You don't see the whole page as one thing. You have to focus your eye and go one letter at a time, and you discover meaning going through that discrete process, as opposed to like driving a car, which is a right brain function.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? It's all integrated. So reading is different. Reading is an extremely left brain, male dominated thing. So what his theory is that once we started using our left brains more, the male all of a sudden took over in everybody's mind, not just not just in males, but also in females. It basically takes up more real estate in our brains, and now everything that we do is basically we have an overabundance of left brain / male faculties that we rely on. Like, I mean, we basically only use our left brain, and then we just like our right brain is barely even. It's there just to kind of like just be the sort of
and it seems like that
the switchboard.
The development of the language there is like relates to like our ability, like the rational ability to like
and also
analyze things,
off,
to like pick out particulars from a whole, like separate things, like break natural
all of a sudden,
wholes
and not only that,
apart.
but like the monotheism and the language, the whole Western canon was essentially was the first religion or belief system that basically did away with the mother, with the female. It's like every other pagan.
Because that's really interesting, because what someone like Schiller would say is that like the feminine aspect of like being or whatever is related to like the whole, and it's related to like our sensuousness and not our reason, and the reason is like
well the reason is one part of it, but women can reason just as much as men can.
Yeah, no, I don't mean it like literally like in terms of like women like intelligence or anything, but I mean like in a metaphysical sense, like in a more esoteric sense, like of like masculinity and femininity, like as two like drives of like humanity which are like working within everyone,
Yeah, of course. I mean, you've read. Have you read Sex and Character?
No, I have not.
The Otto Vaniger, the famous book that was just patently wrong. It's like the most famous thing. Like he took it to Freud. Otto Wanninger being he was a 20, I guess he was 23 years old when he wrote his magnum opus called Sex and Character. It was a profoundly just kind of like it's like no book in the history has ever been sort of like seen as so unscientific and wrong under the guise of being science. I mean, like he took it to Freud to have him sort of like read it and approve, and Freud just like outright like he rejected it on its face immediately. I mean, but his basic tenet was that like basically that there's never been a genius female person. That genius is basically like everything good about everything noble, any virtue, anything great that humanity has to offer is essentially the product of male thinking, and females have a and that he basically like says that like people are not just fully male and female, they're on it's on a scale, right? It's like it's like it's a gray area. You have bits of both. Some people have more male and some people have less male, and some people have more female and some people have less female, but basically like there's no hard gender. So inadvertently he's actually one of the more advanced thinkers, over 100 years in advance. He wrote that book, and it was so wrong at the time. I mean, he killed himself. He shot himself in the same place that Mozart died in, I guess. He rented the room out, and he shot himself. But he was a Jew, and as a corollary to this theory in this book, there's a whole section on Jews, and he equates the Jew to being like akin to the feminine. And there has never been a genius Jew. There's never been a genius. It was a highly anti-Semitic and bigoted work in a strange sense. But he was also homosexual, or closeted homosexual, and he was a very ugly person. Supposedly, he wasn't a very good-looking man. But he's like sort of like the shining, an example of like an inspired crackpot, really like going down the rabbit hole and making sense in his own way. Very very Stirnerian, like completely a theory that's just like is beautiful. It's kind of a beautiful book, but it couldn't be more erroneous, and time has not been kind to it. So Wanninger was like obsessed with it. Like he loved it in a semi-ironic way, but he thinks people have, it's out there. You should read it. It's just a totally misguided, weird read, and but the logic in it is pretty sound, and the writing is good. The science is debatable. It's a little bit more on the Kinsey scale, the type of. I mean, there's no such thing. It depends if you believe in orientation, and that kind of stuff, and he does definitely like jumps to conclusions about it. It kind of reminds me of like Schopenhauer on women, some of his views.
Yeah,
but taken to the extreme.
He has some pretty choice takes on women.
Yeah, but he's basically just like he's a guy with like no life, and that's what every writer is. I mean, every writer. That's why.
We were actually talking to Sam Hyde about that, and he was like talking about how Schopenhauer like was paying people to like go through and collect like all the mentions of him in like newspapers and shit. And
I'm sure he was very well. He was really like he was wealthy at the end, wasn't he? Or no, did he die in poverty? Or I can't remember. He was like really civilized. He was like really he was old by that time, and he probably just like didn't he didn't like ugly things, and he was mild mannered and scary Europeans, like nothing can ruffle their feathers, it's like the movie Midsommar, it's like it taps into our sphere of well-reasoned, thoughtful, mild-mannered Europeans.
Man, thanks so much for talking to us. It's like 3:30 here, so we're gonna wrap this up so we can go to bed. But
Yeah, man. I don't know where we're going with this conversation, but
No, I just want to do like freeform total shit, like bullshit. Like,
yeah, next time with the cameras off, because I always it's always such a shame, like I always end up making my points better off camera for some reason.
oh no, we're just gonna put up the audio for this.
Yeah.
No, but I'm saying even the audio. Like, I mean, anything that's captured is always I make a point of not like revealing the best stuff, except in private when the cameras are not going.
Yeah, if you ever come to New York, we can hook up, and talk some
Did
more.
you ever come to LA?
I haven't been to LA ever. No.
Might have to take a trip.
Yeah, we'll come out at some time and do the West Coast
man.
TekWars tour.
Alex is gonna be so. She's gonna love me so much, man, for doing this.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, and yeah, thanks, guys. You guys were really nice. Thanks. I hope nobody hears it. I hope I don't get any Antifa on my doorstep.
No, man, you're awesome, and thanks so much for talking to us. Have a great night, man.
Yeah, have a good night.
Good night.
Really appreciate it.
Bye, guys.
Bye.